Good morning, everybody. My name is Brad Stroud. I'm the Executive Director for Live Well Crawford County. So our Addiction Prevention Task Force is the group that handled kind of the grant objectives here for this grant. If you don't know where Crawford County is, we're down here in the southeast corner. You can see the split-faced gorilla. So in Crawford County, we're probably most known because Pittsburgh State University is here. Our population is just over 39,000. It always seems to be right at that. We keep thinking we're going to hit 40 one of these days, and it just always stays right at around 39. So as far as our demographics of our race, we're predominantly white, not Hispanic, so about 85%. We do have a little bit of a growing population of our Hispanic ethnicity. So 2.3% is Black and African American, and about 2% is Asian. So this is kind of Southeast Kansas in a nutshell. So front and center is Pitt State football. Everybody loves it. If you haven't been to a Pittsburgh State University football game, it kind of gives you a big time college football atmosphere in a small community. The stadium is really on the upper spectrum of all Division II. The tailgate atmosphere is second to none. It really gives you that big game atmosphere. So everybody loves it. If you go back a little further before Pitt State football, our community, our surrounding areas were big coal mining communities. And so this picture over here on the left is a huge steam shovel. It's called Big Brutus. Maybe you've heard of it. It's probably one of the Kansas attractions if you haven't heard of it. I think at one point this was the biggest steam shovel in the world, maybe the second biggest. So what it would do is it would just kind of like make big seams using the steam shovel. And then they would come in and mine the coal from underneath that seam. The nice thing that is that after coal mining kind of phased out, that has become very, very good fishing. So now all those coal seams are filled with, water, and we have some really, really good fishing out of those pits. If you go to the picture over here on the right, you have we are actually world famous for our fried chicken, Chicken Mary's, Chicken Annie's, Bardo's Idle Hour. All three of those are very popular. There was a show called Food Wars on the Food Network, and Chicken Mary's and Chicken Annie's were one of those shows. And it was it was like a food war of, which one is more popular. And to be honest, like they are about a half a block apart. So the way that these chicken houses started is that because of the coal mining, the men would go work in the coal mines all day, and then they started making fried chicken for all the workers. So when they got done, they would pay to eat a meal, and that's how the fried chicken houses started. So, and they just kind of remained. It's most popular too, if you see the sides, it's potato salad and slaw, but they are called German potato salad and German slaw because it's oil and vinegar based. So very, very good. And then along the bottom, a big part of our communities is our school districts. Everyone loves their local sports and their schools. So those are our 6 schools in Crawford County. So we have Girard Trojans, the which is in Girard, Northeast Vikings, which is in Arma, Kansas, Frontenac Raiders, Pittsburgh Purple Dragons. SMC is St. Mary's Colgan, which is a private Catholic school that's in Pittsburgh. And then the last one is Southeast Lancers, which is in Cherokee, Kansas. There we go. So our task force, this is our task force, Addiction Prevention Task Force mission statement, is to prevent and reduce addiction through education, intervention, and advocacy. And our vision is to achieve addiction-free communities. And basically, if we can achieve that, we're going to have a happier community overall. So through this grant, we've had really 4 main community partners. It really started with our own Addiction Prevention Task Force, Crawford County Health Department, and then Restorative Justice Authority in Crawford County. And I will say that the best thing that I've done for addiction prevention is got our current chair person. Her name is Michelle Alt. She is the fidelity specialist for RJA. And so when she took over, she had an immense amount of relationships that I didn't have. And they were relationships that with like a lot of school counselors and SROs. And it really allowed what the projects that I'm going to talk about, it really allowed those to kind of take off because she had their ears and her confidence. And when she said, hey, we would really like to do this in your school, they're good programs, so on and so forth, they listened to her. If it was me, I didn't have those relationships like she did. So Michelle really did a fantastic job getting the ball rolling on these projects that we wanted to do. So our last community partner really is Girard Middle School, and they were the school that gave us a chance and jumped on board. When we started this grant, I think the major concerns that we saw that we really wanted to try to address was binge drinking. So 5 or more alcoholic drinks. That was probably compared to the rest of the state, those were our two, or that was our one statistic that really stuck out was any statistics that involved binge drinking, we were quite a bit over what the rest of the state was. So these 2 slides just kind of show where we were at compared to the rest of the state in regards to binge drinking. So with that said, we decided, okay, binge drinking is going to be our focus. How do we address this? So we wanted to focus on prevention education and information dissemination. These programs here, Crossroads, Real Colors, and then our informational flyers is what we decided on to provide those 2 things. So Crossroads and Real Colors are prevention education programs that I'll speak more on, and then I'll show you an example of our informational flyer that we developed. So the first program is Crossroads. Crossroads is an alcohol and drug prevention program. Restorative Justice Authority had already had people trained to teach this program. They typically teach this program to justice-involved youth. So youth that have already, gotten in trouble with the law to some degree or some sort, whether it's drugs, smoking, or whether it's alcohol, something, underage substance abuse, the court basically would appoint them to complete this program. So RJA was really high on this program, and so we took and Crossroads has a low risk, a medium risk, and a high risk program. So what we decided was why can't we just use the low risk and use it as a prevention strategy, rather than being reactionary? We're going to be proactive and teaching this program. So Crossroads main areas are values, attitudes, behaviors. Every single session that we did this in 12 sessions. The school was, willing to give us 12 sessions, which is quite a bit. It's quite a lot to ask from the school, but they were okay with it trying it once. So values, attitudes, behaviors are the three main areas of focus. The youth are taught what personal values are. You ask a kid what do you value, and they're like, oh, I value video games and I value food. And so what we really do is we start to dig down, what's your personal values? So then they get down to what their core values are, and then you start hearing family and friends and honesty. And so you make out this list, and they identify what their own personal values are. Every kid may be a little bit different, but a lot of those core values are relatively, close to being the same. And then attitudes, you teach a kid what an attitude is, and then they evaluate their own attitudes towards challenges and issues that they face just on an everyday basis. And then they start to understand that, when you approach things with a bad attitude or a negative attitude, you tend to have negative behaviors. So and they're taught that your attitudes directly affect what your behaviors are. So a behavior is just, is an act, what you do. And so they evaluate their own behaviors, learn how their behaviors are indicative of their attitudes. And then they determine through the course of this program, how do my behaviors reflect what my core values are? And a lot of times, like, you see it all over the spectrum. Their values might be rated at an 8, but their behaviors are maybe a 4 or a 5. And what you want to try to do, or try to get them to understand, is, hey, you have good values, but your behaviors don't always reflect that. How can we take those negative behaviors and flip that to positive behaviors? And that's sort of what the program does from start to finish. It puts them in a lot of different situations of self-reflection, self-evaluation, looking at their own personal situations that maybe they deal with at home, their friends, and that sort of thing. Probably one of the highlights of the Crossroads program is Drug and Alcohol Jeopardy Day. This is our Drug and Alcohol Jeopardy board. We put a little bit of work into this to make it more appealing, and the kids love it. They split into different teams and they really get into this, but they also learn a ton. And it really covers a lot of different things. Opioids is becoming, especially fentanyl right now, such a huge issue with drug use, because you don't know, like, it's in a lot of things that people don't know that it's in, and such a small amount is lethal. And hearing that 6 to 7 grains of salt is the equivalency of a lethal dose of fentanyl really, like, grabs kids and, like, holy cow, that is not very much. And when you teach them that, marijuana and all these things are being, have fentanyl included in them, now it sort of scares them, and it's hard to scare kids. But that does. So Real Colors is the other prevention program that we used. This is actually included in the curriculum of Crossroads. Real Colors is personality temperament tool. So they go through this series of ratings of questions, and then they answer questions. You combine these scores, and then it breaks every kid's personalities into 4 colors. Everybody has the 4 colors included in them, but you have one dominant color most of the time. Sometimes people will have a a tie between their top two. But basically, you identify what color your personality is, and that's like the color that you most you act out of effortlessly. So the way you act, the way you respond to things, the way you handle certain things is all due to your color of personality. The important thing about this is it's fun. They not only learn about themselves and their own personality and why they think the way they think about things, but they also learn about their peers. That's huge, because now kids are starting to be like, oh, that, you know, it assures kids that, hey, you're not different than anybody. You are you. You are just the way you are, and that is okay. It makes kids comfortable with themselves, and it gives them some reasons and validity for being the way they are. And then it also teaches their peers that, hey, you know, so-and-so isn't weird, right? They just, they process things differently than you do. And that doesn't make yours right and theirs wrong. So I think that's one of the most important things too. So since Real Colors is part of the Crossroads curriculum, we were able to teach that to the 7th graders at Girard Middle School. But they also had us teach only the Real Colors part, which is, it can be a separate program in itself. We were able to teach that to every 8th grader at Girard Middle School. So with Real Colors, here's your 4 colors broken down. So like if I'm a blue, you're emotionally driven, you want harmony when you have groups. You don't like there being conflict and dissension amongst any of the ranks. You like everyone just to be happy and get along. You're very sympathetic. Family and friends are like a huge concern of yours. I always use this example when we're teaching, but when you go out to eat and you ask a blue, hey, where do you want to eat? They say, I don't care, where do you want to eat? Because we are more concerned about everyone else being happy than ourselves being happy. So a gold, they're loyalty driven. They absolutely respect rules and authority. If you tell them a rule, they will follow it. They don't ask questions why. They just know that's the rule and they're going to follow it. They are very organized. So they have lists, and they have lists for their lists. Their closets are, you know, immaculate. And so it's kind of funny, just all these different things and how you can get such a difference in one classroom. So like your green, they're logically driven. Like they're always going to ask why. They want to know the logic behind something. They're not like rule breakers. They just want to know why there's a rule. And then orange, they're the rule breakers. You can spot these kids in class like within the first 5 minutes. And sometimes like the dynamics of a class is kind of funny because you get way too many oranges in one room, and it's really hard to manage the classroom. So it's something that we've kind of learned. They're very adventurous. They're competitive in nature. A lot of kids tend to be orange because they're still in that competitive sports, you know, era of their lives. And as they become adults, and then you get out of that, you know, sports being an everyday part of your life, then your colors can change. So we tend to have a lot of orange and blues in our classrooms. So measuring the outreach, we started this Crossroads program. We had one class in 2021 and 22. We had a fall semester teaching of Crossroads. We had 17 students, and we did it. They liked it. They invited us back in the second semester, and we had another class of 15. So we only had 32 students that were able to go through the program, but it did open the door for us to come teach on some other things, such as the Real Colors. So in 2021 and 22, Real Colors, we were able to do 65 students. And then this past year, we were able to do every 7th grader at Girard Middle School and do every 8th grader for real colors. So that's kind of a look at how our numbers have increased. Just a bit of, it doesn't seem like a big number, but getting into the schools during COVID was such a challenge, and we were able to do that. And our programs has really started to grow since, a couple years. So information dissemination. This is our Melissa Guns from Greenbush helped us develop this. So this is just like a 3x5 card, kind of like the shiny card that you see that's like a 3x5. And we can print these. We can also share this on social media. But what we did was we just designed it in a way that's easy just to like replace with new statistics when new statistics become available. This is like the front of our card. And then the back of our card is a little bit different. So, like our fact here, how old are Crawford County kids when they start using substances? And that's 13 years old. It just kind of jumps out to you like, that's a little bit alarming. I have a 13-year-old, and it makes me nervous to know that that's the age that like our Crawford County kids, kind of start to experiment with that stuff. And we have some other things here, like the QR code takes you to a link that helps parents. It helps teach parents how to talk to their children about drugs and alcohol. So we thought that was good. And we have a link to the KCTC survey data. So we have that. I think like one of the most important things, like I saw just I mentioned some of our outreach, but I think one of the most important things didn't come in a statistic, but my son is a 7th grader, and he plays, football, basketball, and track. He did track for junior high. And while I was teaching the 7th graders, it was right in the middle of basketball season. So like my son was playing against the kids that I was teaching. And then, so like my son would be like, hey, so-and-so just added me from Girard on some social media thing. And they said that like I was teaching them. And so then like my son ended up being friends with like all these kids from Girard because of the fact that we went in and taught these programs. And then like this spring going to track meets, I realized like as I'm at the track meet that I know every single 7th and 8th grader from Girard that's at the track meets, because we have taught every 7th and 8th grader at Girard Middle School, whether it be Real Colors or whether it be Crossroads. And one of the parents was standing there at like one of the events that my son was doing, and this kid's name is Brody, and he came up and he's like, hey Brad, and he like gives me a 5, and we're talking, and he walks off, and there's a lady standing like right next to me, and she goes, Brody's my son. She goes, did you just teach him one time? And I said, yeah. I said, we did the drug and alcohol, prevention course. And she goes, he like will not stop talking about you, and you have made such an impact on him in such a little amount of time. Like that was the most satisfying, gratifying thing that I think happened. And it really like tugged on me, like, hey, what we did that made a difference. And that was pretty special, just hearing that from the kid's mom. And just seeing how the kids kind of interact with me when we're just outside of school. I've seen kids at Walmart before, and there they are, and they speak. And so anyway, I think that's probably beyond numbers and like how we measure things sometimes. Just the like that, those examples are as important as anything too.